Professor Brené Brown's research shows that vulnerability fosters good emotional and mental health. It is a sign of courage. We become more resilient and brave when we embrace who we truly are and what we are feeling. The Vulnerable Scientist podcast is a space for scientists to tell their honest and authentic stories. I am your host, Sarah Nyakeri, who happens to be a scientist, informal science communicator, and I help scientists create personal websites. If you want to support this show, go to www.patreon.com/thevulnerable-scientist. You can also follow this podcast on all social media platforms at TV Scientist Pod. Professor Brené Brown's research shows that vulnerability fosters good emotional and mental health. It is a sign of courage. We become more resilient and brave when we embrace who we truly are and what we are feeling. The Vulnerable Scientist podcast is a space for scientists to tell their honest and authentic stories. I am your host, Sarah Nyakeri, who happens to be a scientist, informal science communicator, and I help scientists create personal websites. If you want to support this show, go to www.patreon.com/thevulnerable-scientist. You can also follow this podcast on all social media platforms at TV Scientist Pod. Okay, so we Dr. Dawid, right? Dawid Hanak.
Yes, that's right.
But the W is V, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. It sounds like German.
Yeah.
Because German has the same W is V.
Yeah, it's W is V as well, but it's Polish actually. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was actually thinking.
Actually, I come from the region where there was a strong German influence some time ago, so probably that might be the reason.
Why? But W, that V, okay, in Polish language, W is
V.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay, so at this point in your story, we have talked about your journey to where you are right now, which is pretty interesting. And you've talked about some few things in the same, just pointed at like things like social media and such like thing, and writing papers, a few things that you've talked about that have that are related to your story. But since the main thing of this podcast is about the highs and lows, of which, of course, you've pointed out still in your story, I would like you to tell us some of the lows, the challenges, because you mentioned a bit, you said something, the challenges that you faced through your Ph.D. But I would like to know the challenges that you faced throughout this whole journey that you've explained, that we'd like to talk about.
Right. I think the main challenge was actually the transition from PhD to academic position. As I mentioned, I think that was the most difficult one, because suddenly once during the PhD, you can of course focus on your research and teaching and whatever your responsibilities are. But then once you turn into academic, then you've got 10 times more responsibilities. And those usually pulling you into different directions. So whether that's teaching, course management, research, commercial work, because sometimes academics do also commercial work. And then you don't have much time for writing, you don't have much time for promotion of your work, or even going for conferences, right? So I guess at the very beginning of my career, it was difficult to actually find the right balance between what it is that I do that I enjoy and what it is that I do that I have to do.
That you don't necessarily enjoy.
That. Yeah. Sometimes you have to do things, right? Like admin, all of this stuff. It's within the job description. But
so if you were to get out of academia, you can actually, if, like, for example, there are no jobs in academia or there are no jobs in industry when it comes to research, you could actually get an admin job and do well, right? Like if you have to feed yourself.
Project management job, easily, yeah.
What else?
That could be something. Well, with my skill set, I could easily get a consultancy job. It's more like a business consultancy or technology consultancy, pretty much doing the same thing as I do in my work.
But the research side of it,
on business. But there's no research side of it, right? So it would be more like routine. Yeah. And the salary-wise is more or less the same, so no incentive to go there.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So at least in the UK, right? So at least in the UK, when you look at the job in industry and job in academia, the same level earns more or less the same. There's a 5% difference in some cases. Of course, in some industries, like say data science, maybe IT, and then business, like after MBA and stuff. So that's where you can earn more in industry than in academia, I believe. But within energy, the salaries are more or less the same.
Oh, okay. So it's the type of research.
It's the type of the work that you enjoy most, I guess. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So since you're talking about this challenge, you mentioned mentorship. It's one of the things that you didn't have at that point, but you sought for someone to help you in that. So I think the question here I'm asking is how, apart from looking for someone who's higher than you in your field, what is that thing that you seek for when looking for a mentor? Like in terms of personality-wise, in terms of anything?
I didn't look for anyone in particular, like specific personality. I was looking at someone who went through the journey I'm going through at the moment. So someone who actually started early at my university and then progressed through the ladder. So that was one thing. Also wanted to get someone who is not necessarily within the same field of study, but would understand my field of study, so that they could direct me in the direction where I should head. And then really someone who has time, because that's the most important thing. Because we can get a mentor who would just spend 5 minutes with us and say they don't have time or they won't respond to the email or something. But it is really nice to have someone who you can go and have a coffee with and just discuss your ideas maybe or your priorities. That's really important.
So talking of coffee, that was
my
That's I think the question that I'm asking. Like, what should someone be expecting from a mentorship? Like, we talk about mentorship, but we don't really talk about the intricacies, like the things that happen between, what kind of relationship is there between a mentor and a mentee, and what things happen there? Like, what are you expecting? What kind of meetings or what kind of what happens between a mentor and a mentee? Like, what happens there for you to be guided? Like, so, for example, if you have a problem that you how do you email them? What happens there?
So how it worked for us, of course, at Cranfield we have an official mentor program. That kind of helped us with matching. So I submitted application explaining what sort of mentor I'm looking for, what I want to achieve out of this. So I had a number of priorities.
Do you want to say that?
So my priorities were to publish more papers and get more projects, basically 2 priorities. Get more projects so that I could focus on my research more rather than on teaching. And then I think there's a couple of people who review those applications. Mentors also apply. So they say what kind of mentees they are looking for, at what career level. So they matched me with a colleague of mine in another school. And really, we agreed on meeting every month or every 2 months for a coffee. It was like 1 hour discussion with a goal to actually focus on a specific. So at that time, I was applying for the senior lecturer position, So the goal, we had a clear goal for this specific mentorship relationship.
Okay.
We were always thinking about how my activities can contribute towards me getting getting promoted. So with each mentor relationship, that's what I do right now as well. When someone starts working with me, we set up a goal and a target. So say we've got the goal, we want to achieve that specific outcome by that date. Okay, so we have the activity plus the deadline, so that it's time bound. And then we set up a number of objectives, what it is that we're going to try. And this is what I did with my colleague, actually. When we basically said, okay, he told me, you have to apply for this funding, you have to apply for this position, you have to apply for, you have to do this, this, and this. Of course, I came up with some ideas of what I can do. He gave me feedback on why it is a good idea, why it's not a good idea. So it's important to go both ways, right? Not only positive feedback, but also constructive, negative feedback.
Yeah.
Because I feel like many people are worried about getting negative feedback. But that's how you learn. I learned more from rejections than I learned from acceptances. So I'm always happy to get rejected because I learn much more and I'll do better next time. So whenever I came with a piece of work that I did and I got for feedback with that mentor, I told him to be absolutely honest. Whether he hates it, just tell me. Tell me why you hate it, because I really want to see how I can improve rather than just being pat on the back and say you're doing a good job. Yeah. So I think being open to feedback is important, and acting on the feedback later on is even more important.
So what kind of meetings do you have? Like, do you meet over what exactly? Like, how do you arrange meetings? What kind of conversations go there? Yeah.
So the way it worked with my mentor, as I said, we agreed on a monthly meeting. It was kind of one hour meeting in a coffee shop at our university. It was before pandemic, so we could meet face to face. So that was much easier. So the structure was pretty relaxed, I would say. So we were just initial couple of minutes was just chatting about what's going on, just about lives, trying to build the rapport and trying to build the relationship, right? Because it is kind of a relationship, so you don't want to see it as a official structured meeting, right? So it kind of naturally went into the discussion of, okay, what you've been up to regarding this objective that we had. It was me talking about, okay, I did this activity, what do you think about this? And then I got feedback. It was more like a discussion about how I can improve, what went well, what didn't went well, what I can improve further, what I can do better next time. It was this kind of discussion. And whenever I do that with my mentees, with my students as well, because I always treat my students as mentees. Like, my role as a supervisor is to help them become better researchers and get to the next level of their careers. So I always follow this similar kind of approach, right? So at the very beginning, we just chat about general things, just check with them whether there's anything I can help immediately, right? Because there are some points that they usually leave till the end, and then sometimes the meeting is over and we don't have time to discuss it. So I always ask about the most important things at the very beginning, and then we move to the main business, which is basically usually the project work and discussion about some of the challenges they might have within the projects. So this is how it works. It's more about, it's just, I don't like to keep things official. I try to be, open, and I expect the same from my people, right? We are all people, so we shouldn't. I for example, I like people calling me by the first name rather than Dr. Hanak, because I don't like this boundary, right? There is no boundary between us. The fact that I have PhD and other people don't, it doesn't change anything.
Yeah.
So I just call me David, and I'm happy with it. Yeah.
Okay. So, what other challenge did you face?
What other challenge?
Oh, but thanks for sharing that. At least
Yeah.
I'm sure there's someone
fine.
who will benefit from this. Like, because we don't talk about that openly. Like, what happens between mentor? Like, what am I expecting? We don't talk about that.
Yes.
Just say, I have a mentor, but
Exactly.
we don't tell what happens between you and your mentor, you know? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So,
Exactly. Other challenges. I think at some point when you're in academia and you're doing that for a long time, or longer time, you need to have this purpose. I did mention purpose several times.
yeah.
You need to have a purpose to hammer through some of the difficulties that you face, of course. So I guess it's just some time ago. It's just trying to. Right now I'm trying to clarify why I'm doing this in the first place again. So I guess that's why I wasn't pretty much available earlier this year, because I'm trying to work out why it is that I'm doing this in the first place. Is my original purpose still valid? Does it align with my values? So this is pretty important. So you know your purpose and how your work actually contributes towards society. So I guess when you lose sight of this and you get involved in so many things. So for the past couple of months and years, I got involved in so many different projects that were interesting in itself, but sometimes they kind of they are not related to your purpose. What's the value of that project and how you can contribute towards it. So sometimes you can get lost in that. So it's important to actually take some time off, reflect on where it is that you want to be in next year or 5 years, and rewrite or kind of revive the purpose that you've got, because that does help with the direction. That does help with motivation, definitely. Trying to get yourself motivated is one of the most difficult things when you in academia, especially in the virtual environment right now.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think that's one of the challenges that I've been recently facing. Trying to work out why it is that I do it.
And how do you? So, okay. How do you usually deal with that normally? Like, how has that dealing with it changed over time?
It is a difficult question, I must admit. How do you deal with kind of lack of purpose? Because I'm only getting out of it, to be honest.
Yeah.
I guess trying to seek support from other people, talking to other people is pretty important. Knowing that you can rely on other people is important.
Yeah.
Again, something I said some time ago today, we shouldn't suffer in silence, right? Because that's the worst thing you can do, actually, because trying to work out things yourself make it even worse, because there will be more and more things that will come at your place and you will not be able to cope with it.
Yeah.
So speaking to your loved ones, that's the most important thing. I that's what I found. I mean, I've got so much support from my wife during that time, and just I know she kind of keep talking about these issues, and yeah, she was fed up probably with that. But it is important to have this sort of support, and I guess now talking helps. Trying to find solutions by using, say, I don't say kind of having more mentors, because that's not always the best way, because you keep within the same environment. But looking solutions elsewhere is useful. That's what I found. Looking at other industries, looking at other areas, trying to understand what's going on. That's pretty much important. To whether or feeling uncertain, it's okay. because this is how we are, right? We are human beings, so we cannot, be 100% motivated all the time.
Yeah.
Because that would be we're not machines, right? So we're human. We are kind of driven by emotions, and we need to recognize that. And when that happens, it's good. What people can actually do is just switch off from academia, take time off. Many times we can kind of when we are academics. Not saying that this is a requirement, but I know people actually use it 24/7. So you constantly within this environment, you're constantly getting emails, constantly replying. So what helped me was to set kind of a rule for myself that I only reply to emails within my core business kind of time, which is between 9 and 5 or something. I don't respond to emails in the evenings, don't write emails in the evening or weekends. Setting a clear boundaries for where you work is important, so that you have this downtime. And then taking time off, trying to kind of enjoy the nature and stuff is important.
Okay, so another challenge.
Yep.
Another challenge that you faced.
Another challenge. I think we're digging deeper and deeper. Yeah, I guess it's difficult. I mean, another challenge. I mean, it, again, might be a challenge, might not be a challenge.
Okay.
But sometimes it is. Of course, I came to the UK about 10 years ago. So it might be a challenge feeling that I'm still not kind of settled, I'm not from here, right? So this kind of feeling that I'm originally from somewhere else and that might influence the way I work, might influence the way I'm perceived because I speak in a different way. I've got different accent. But I guess the work that I do on social media and running webinars and this sort of stuff helps with confidence. Because at the end of the day, what we really want to do and what we really want is to be confident in the fact that we are happy, right? In the fact that we do things that matter. And that we are not being judged by how we do it, but we are being kind of seen as someone who adds value, regardless of where you are from, and regardless of how you speak. And so it's important to recognize your value, and that's what I learned pretty recently, that I'm a valuable human being, but it doesn't really matter that I'm from Poland and live in UK. As long as I help other people and add value, that's what should matter, not where I'm from. And also we should be flexible in terms of who we work with, because looking at EDI is pretty important recently. Everyone keeps talking about EDI, that's equality, diversity, inclusion.
Okay.
So that basically means working with people from across the world actually helps a lot, because we've got different perspectives, we've got different views on some of the aspects, even on research, right?
Yes.
So that helps us get kind of a broader view of what really matters and what we should focus on in the future.